Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing Episode 78, Fire and Ice. The episode begins with Ash already in the midst of his second round battle, which happened to be on the rock field. Both trainers were down to their last Pokemon, being Ash's Squirtle and his opponent's Nidorino. The Nidorino goes in for a tackle, but the Squirtle then protects itself by hiding inside of its shell, and then proceeds to roll around in his shell, dodging all of Nidorino's attacks. He then uses his shell to slide up a rock and go up in the air, where he then unravels from his shell and hits the Nidorino with a water gun, followed by a Skull Bash, which knocks out the Nidorino, winning him the match. Let's go. Ash had won his second round battle and was moving on to the third. Brock and Misty cheer, along with the entire crowd, with the exception of Gary, who noticed how overexcited and overconfident Ash was getting due to his wins, which he called very, very, very easy, and not something that Ash should be getting excited over. He reminds himself that he'll be the one to put Ash in his place and end his overconfidence, as he then leaves the stadium with his cheerleaders getting jealous that all he was talking about was Ash and not them. Meanwhile, since Ash's first round battle, Team Rocket had been thrown out by the Officer Jenny for a second time, and this time they were thrown into the literal trash. Damn, sucks to be them. Suddenly though, James gets an idea, ready to make up for the fact that they haven't successfully stolen any Pokemon during the entire league. Meanwhile, Ash and the gang were currently staying at a hotel during the league, but Ash currently was nowhere to be seen. Misty questioned Brock where Ash was as she walked up to him feeding all of his Pokemon, including his Kingler, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Pidgeotto. Brock revealed that Ash and Pikachu had gone to get something to eat at a big restaurant, and this led Misty to feel bad for Ash's other Pokemon, as Ash had taken Pikachu, but not them. Brock retorts that Ash was being really annoying, stating how hungry and starving he was, so that's why he didn't protest when Ash immediately left, but Misty still gets angry despite Ash being starving, as she believed that he was selfish for putting the needs of himself before his Pokemon. For example, his Pokemon may have even needed to go to the Pokemon Center after fighting hard in today's battle, but instead, Ash was busy going out to eat, so not only did he not bring them to the restaurant, but he also didn't choose to help them in any other way. Misty then states how she would never leave her Pokemon starving, as she sets down her Togepi and lets him eat out of Squirtle's bowl. Man, poor Squirtle, man, it probably didn't want to share its food. Meanwhile, outside, Ash was bitching about being starving, just as Brock had said, because he still couldn't find a place to eat. Even the one that his Indigo Plateau travel guidebook told him about. As they walk, trying to find it, they try to distract themselves from their hunger by looking at all of the merchandise, such as a Marowak doll and Clefairy dolls, and they also see a poster for the movie that Psyduck starred in, Pokémon in Love. However, they then come across the most exciting thing, which is a Pokemon parade that has a Dragonite, Slowbro, Snorlax, Parasect, Chansey. However, Ash gets so enamored by this parade that when Brock and Misty show up, having gone to look for him, he gets jump scared. He gets even more scared when Misty proceeds to yell at him for abandoning his Pokemon with Brock and selfishly going out to eat. Ash suggests that he makes it up to his Pokemon by taking them to the Pokemon Center to get healed, so the gang decide to walk there. On the way, Ash informs Brock and Misty how he found out that his third round battle was going to be on the ice field, and he planned to use Squirtle and Kingler in the battle. Ash's yapping is immediately cut off as he panics when the gang arrives at the Pokemon Center, only to find it absolutely lined up, like more so than a fucking iPhone line. Officer Jenny informs anyone in the back of the line that they should just go to a different Pokemon Center, as you guys were going to be here for way too fucking long if you waited. And Brock instantly recognizes this Nurse Joy as the same one from his hometown, Pewter City, and immediately develops an immense crush on her, not just due to her being an Officer Jenny, but due to them sharing the same hometown. It's because of this that he convinces Misty that they should listen to the Nurse Joy and go somewhere else, not wanting to upset Nurse Joy. Ash happily obliges with this, as he really just wanted to go to the restaurant still. As they walked, he looked in his Indigo Plateau guidebook yet again, and managed to match it with an actual restaurant. He had found it. He dashes in excitedly, forgetting about his promise to Misty to take his Pokemon to the Pokemon Center first, and Misty complains about this. Inside, Ash spots a whole bunch of food, indicating that this wasn't just a restaurant, but a buffet. He's really, really happy at this, but then he remembers how he's a broke bitch and doesn't have any money, so he can't pay for any of it. Thankfully, though, the waitress then walks up to him and tells him that he can eat for free. So he takes a plate from her hand and begins to fill it up, believing that she was telling the truth, due to the fact that he was now so famous, he thought, that the waitress was one of his fans and was offering to pay for the meal for him. Knowing he doesn't have to pay for it, but one of his fans, he decides to go overboard, getting more food than Nikocado Avocado would get. When Misty then comes into the restaurant and criticizes Ash for the amount that he bought, citing that it was a waste of money and that he was going to get fucking fat, Ash rebuttals that one of his fans had offered to pay for his meal. Misty then looks at the sign in the restaurant and confirms with Ash that the waitress wasn't just giving him a free meal to be nice because she was his fan, but simply because she was forced to, because all trainers ate free at this buffet. Ash gets a little discouraged as he realizes this, disappointed in the fact that he didn't have fans that were that loyal yet, as Misty sets Togepi down to try and steal some of Ash's food. However, Togepi isn't interested in the food, instead being more interested in the tablecloth as it tries to pull it. Pikachu notices a whole bunch of silverware on the table, and notices how if Togepi pulls the tablecloth, then all of the sharp cutlery would come and fall on it, probably killing it because Togepi was so small. So Pikachu jumps in and catches all of the cutlery in its mouth as it falls. This didn't mean anything anyway though, as Togepi managed to walk away in time all by itself, so Pikachu's help was at the end of the day pointless. Damn Pikachu, almost injuring yourself for nothing. And not only does it get nothing in return, but it also gets criticized by Misty, who yells at it for trying to influence Togepi to do a dangerous stunt, as Misty believed that Pikachu holding the color in its mouth was a special dangerous stunt that Ash had instructed it to do for training. She then proceeded to criticize Ash, saying, "Why the fuck would you make your Pokemon train by holding some forks and knives?" Not understanding the situation whatsoever. Only after being in the restaurant by themselves for over an hour at this point do they realize the fact that Brock was nowhere to be seen. First Ash disappeared, now Brock disappeared. Damn. Anyways, Misty and Ash leave the restaurant to go find him, but all that they can find are a whole bunch of Officer Jennies and Nurse Joys running around. The League needing several of each due to the amount of trainers that were gathered there. Eventually, though, in the midst of all the Officer Jennies and Nurse Joys, they do spot Brock, and the reason why he was there was because he was simping for each and every one of them, trying to get each of their numbers as they walk by. Misty and Ash are obviously disappointed by Brock's simping and decide to leave him be. With Ash finally being full, Ash and Misty finally resume their search to look for a Pokemon Center to heal Ash's Pokemon, and they do find another one, only to find it even more lined up than the previous. With no Nurse Joy to tell them to do otherwise this time, though, Ash and Misty decide to wait in line, even if it takes 10 hours. Fortunately for them, though, they then see a hand peering out from an alleyway, motioning for them to come over, and they decide to follow it, hoping that it was maybe a shortcut to another Pokemon Center. Fortunately for them, it was a shortcut to another Pokemon Center, as the person who called them in was a nurse from this said center. Or at least, that's what they claimed, but for some reason, they had blue hair, as opposed to being a Nurse Joy. This was because this nurse was actually James in disguise, and he was going through with his idea that he suggested earlier in the episode, which turned out to be operating a fake Pokemon Center in a ploy to get Ash to drop off all of his Pokemon so that they could steal them. Not picking up on this though, Ash and Misty walk into the alleyway and meet the blue-haired nurse, who explains to them that she knows of a secret Pokemon Center that doesn't have any lines, and that it even had its own Nurse Joy. So Ash and Misty follow James, as Brock shows up as well. Much to Ash and the gang's shock, Brock had showed up at the mere mention of hearing Nurse Joy. Like, just hearing the name Nurse Joy triggered his simping radar, so he had to come to the alleyway. And wanting to see this Nurse Joy, he decided to join Ash and Misty on their journey to this new Pokemon Center. James proceeded to lead them to the fake Pokemon Center, with Ash and the gang immediately questioning why it looked different than your average center, as all centers looked the same, with James defending that it was just a temporary location for the Pokemon League, one that was portable so that it was easier to get around. They foolishly go inside just to see Jessie disguised as a Nurse Joy, and Ash foolishly hands over his Pikachu, as well as all of his Pokeballs, to James and Jessie, unaware of their true identity, expecting his Pokemon to actually get healed. Whoa, no way, did Team Rocket's disguises actually work? Well, no, because something was up with Brock's Nurse Joy senses, which he apparently had. He explained how he usually had his usual simping rampage whenever he saw a Nurse Joy, but after seeing this Nurse Joy, he didn't have that. He questioned if it was because he'd seen too many Nurse Joys at this point that the effect was wearing off, but Misty and Ash argued that the trouble with his senses was just caused by him not being prepared to see her. After Jessie and James hear the words trouble and prepare, which are heavily part of their motto, they immediately throw off their disguises and start to recite their motto, being unable to help themselves, because just like Brock couldn't help his simping rampages, they couldn't help breaking into a motto. Now with their disguises unveiled and Pikachu in their possession, they proceeded to destroy the Pokemon Center as it transformed into their Meowth balloon. James was actually right when he said that the center was portable, as it was able to fold down into the balloon, and they got into the balloon and proceeded to try and escape with Pikachu. Thankfully though, Brock, not standing for anyone trying to impersonate his beautiful Nurse Joys, decides to send out his Onix and have him attack the Meowth balloon, simply grabbing it in its mouth and dragging it down from the sky, biting a hole in it in the process, allowing Ash to grab Pikachu from the down balloon as it blasted off due to the hole, sending Team Rocket away. Let's go! Brock recalls his Onix, and Ash hugs his Pikachu, happy to have him back. But then, they suddenly hear an announcement over the PA system that states that there was finally some Pokemon Centers that weren't super lined up. I hate when PA systems do this, like, hey guys, come to this thing that's not currently lined up, like, that's only gonna make it lined up in turn. But anyways, after hearing this, Ash hurriedly rushes to the Pokemon Center so that he can heal his Pokemon before tomorrow's big match. Speaking of that big match, the next day, it was currently underway, and Ash's opponent was a random-ass dude from Pewter City, just like how that Nurse Joy from earlier was. The battle had already begun, with each trainer already down one Pokemon, and Ash currently having his Kingler sent out, and the Pewter City trainer currently having his Cloyster sent out. I hate when Pokemon Leagues do this, man. Show us the whole battle, not just a part of it. Anyways, Ash has Kingler go in for a Crab Hammer, but the Pewter City trainer, named Pete Pebbleman, commands his Cloyster to use Withdraw as it tucks into its shell to shield itself from the Crab Hammer. This leads Ash to contemplate using a different move, as if Kingler just proceeded to keep trying Crab Hammer, it would be useless, as Cloyster was currently shielded, and it would only result in Kingler tiring itself out. However, Brock and Misty informed him that Cloyster was still taking damage despite being shielded, just very slowly, so if Kingler kept going with Crab Hammer, it could still do some good damage. So, Ash commanded his Kingler to keep using Crab Hammer despite the shield, and eventually he managed to break through Cloyster's shell, shattering it and knocking it out. This puts Pete down to his final Pokemon, as he recalls his Cloyster and sends out an Arcanine. This makes Ash excited, thinking he would get an easy win since Kingler was a water type and Arcanine was a fire type. However, Arcanine manages to dodge Kingler's barrage of bubbles by hopping across a whole bunch of ice platforms, and it then uses Dragon Rage to create a huge twister which Kingler becomes trapped in. Kingler then drops from the twister, seemingly being unable to battle, but when Ash pleads with it, it manages to get up despite having the unable to battle circles in its eyes, which obviously shocks Misty and Brock. Was Ash cheating or some shit? Well, no, because Kingler was only able to stand up for like another 5 seconds before quickly falling to the ground again, causing Ash to recall it and send out his Pikachu as his final Pokemon. In fear that even though Kingler technically wasn't unable to battle, it would just continue to get up and then fall, so it would essentially be useless. So yeah, Pikachu was the better call here. Pikachu instantly does circles around the Arcanine with agility to confuse it, and Arcanine attempts to shoot a Fire Blast, but the agility is too fast and Pikachu is able to dodge it. The Arcanine continues to try hitting Pikachu with more Fire Blasts, but they all miss, destroying the ice in the ice field in the process, essentially turning it into a water field with only 2 pieces of ice left, one where Arcanine stood and one where Pikachu stood. Pete revealed that this was actually his plan so that he could melt the ice, and now Pikachu couldn't use agility to do any dodging, as it was stuck on one singular platform. This led Brock to suggest Ash try something else, such as having Pikachu dive in the water. Ash questions why he should do this, as if he had Pikachu dive in the water, then it would simply just be floating around aimlessly, allowing Arcanine to go in for attacks on it, but Misty then reminded Ash that water conducts electricity, so if Pikachu is in the water, then his electric attacks would be stronger. So, Ash decides to have his Pikachu dive in the water and proceed to use Thunderbolt, which it does in fact make it stronger, not knocking out the Arcanine as the Thunderbolt made contact. And thus, the episode ends with Ash having done it. He had won his 3rd round battle, leaving only one field round left. The entire crowd cheered as Ash hugged Pikachu.